Hello, everyone, and welcome to our show today. Today, we're diving in. We're talking about Equifax business credit reports. Most importantly, we're talking about what you need to know to navigate your Equifax business credit report. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Ty Crandall. I'm actually the CEO at CreditSuite. If we can help you anywhere along the way when it comes to building business credit, feel free to visit us online at creditsuite.com. Email us info@creditsuite.com or give us a ring at 877-600-2487. Also, today, I will be pulling up a link, creditsuite.com/monitoring. If you're looking to get business credit monitoring for your business at the absolute cheapest and most affordable way possible, check out that link. It gives you a 90% discount to access your business credit reports. So remember, we're talking about business credit here. Equifax does have a consumer and a commercial division. For the purpose of today's training, we're strictly talking about your Equifax business or commercial credit report. So we're talking about, of course, the credit that's linked to your business, that's based on your business's EIN number and the credit profile that you're listing or you're creating under your EIN. This is credit that's linked to your business name, not linked to your personal social security number. So of course, what we're talking about here is business credit scores that depend on how well your business pays its bills. I have to make sure that that's clear because we may also talk about consumer credit scoring, but in this example, we are talking about Equifax, your commercial credit scores that reflect your business's payment history, not you as a consumer. So remember, consumer and business credit scores can vary dramatically, which is why we're going to talk about what we're going to discuss today. In the business world, there are multiple credit scores that you may see on your report. They all reflect different things, as we're going to talk about. One of the things you want to know is, for example, their failure score will show that you're on the verge of filing bankruptcy, and you could get a failing score even if you have no credit established. So these are the type of things you need to know about business credit scores we'll be diving into. So there are three major business credit reporting agencies out there: Dun & Bradstreet, Experian, and Equifax. We're used to, in the United States, Equifax and Experian. They're very big on the consumer side. Dun & Bradstreet isn't, but Dun & Bradstreet is the biggest of the business credit reporting agencies. To give you an idea of difference in size, Dun & Bradstreet has about 220 million businesses on record. Experian is the next closest, and they have about 22 million. So Dun & Bradstreet is 10 times bigger than Equifax or Experian when it comes to business credit monitoring, and Equifax is very, very, very small in this world. There is also a FICO SBSS business credit score. This is FICO's version of your small business credit score. You should be familiar with this as well. And in other training on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/creditsuite, we decode this score. This is the score you're going to really need to care about when it comes to SBA loans. The fourth credit bureau you're going to want to know about is called CreditSafe. CreditSafe, we are now starting to train more and more on because CreditSafe is very big overseas. It is making their way to the United States. We're already starting to see lenders and credit issuers jump on board. So expect future training from us on CreditSafe, as well as a lot of training we already have available for all three of these. So the company Equifax gets its data from a lot of different places. First of all, a data sharing agreement with the Small Business Financial Exchange. So if you're not familiar with the Small Business Exchange or the Small Business Financial Exchange, here's how it works. The Small Business Financial Exchange has a give to get relationship with lenders, even with credit bureaus. The idea is that if you give the data you have to them, they will give the data they have to you. So this is basically owned by its quote unquote members, and their members are typically lenders. So what lenders do is they get information from you on your application. They submit all that information to this data warehouse called this SBFE, the Small Business Financial Exchange, and then the credit bureaus and a lot of these other sources pull data from there to make lending decisions, credit issuing decisions. Even this data can appear on your business credit reports. Now, Net 30 type industry trade credit information from a wide variety of suppliers. So suppliers are also very big data furnishers to the credit bureau. Basically, they're getting data from other sources through the Small Business Financial Exchange. They're also getting data from people that report data to them, these trade vendors. Equifax combines financial data with industry trade data, and they add in utility and telephone data they have, public record information, including bankruptcies, judgments, and tax liens. All this information can be calculated in to what they come up with your Equifax business credit score. Now, the first section on your business credit report, just below the date, is devoted to identifying information about your company, your business name, the address and telephone number, whether a business is incorporated, the date you first went into business. Okay, so this section will also include the number of employees and annual sales. So again, and this section also show if there are any alerts. So there's a lot of things I want to cover on this slide that you need to know about. Okay, first of all, your business name, address, telephone number. I talk a lot about being fundable, about your fundability, about credibility, legitimacy. It's because when the information on your credit report, for example, doesn't match what's on an application for credit, this is a big reason that you could be denied for financing. So you've got to make sure the business credit reporting agencies have the right name, address, phone number. It's all that information is congruent. Okay, the date you first went into business. Also, your business credit reports show a change of ownership as well. Why this is important? This is why you never want to buy shelf corporations, because the date you first went into business shows on your business credit report. And if there's an ownership change, like you bought a shelf corporation, that shows as well. And that then will trigger an alert which notifies lenders and credit issuers to dive a little deeper, because ownership changes are not very common and it's a red flag for potential fraud because of shelf corporations. Okay, it also shows the number of employees and annual sales. Very, very important to you. And why you need to care is this: you have a business credit score with each of the reporting agencies, which has to do with your financial stability. What happens with these reporting agencies is they will go by the financial data you have, including things like tax returns if they can get them from you. If they cannot get that financial data, they determine your financial worth, as crazy as this is, based on the number of employees you have. So if they don't have your tax data, they don't have your tax return data to show your sales, they'll show your employees. And if you don't have a lot of employees, that can give you a very bad business credit score, this very bad of these financial stability score, which again is just what it sounds like. It's there to determine how stable financially your business is. So where do they get this information? From your Secretary of State. You tell your Secretary of State the number of employees you have when you file annual reports. Be aware of that. A low number can give you a failing score if they don't have your financial data, such as your actual sales. Okay, and again, it also shows alerts. If you buy trade lines, if you buy shelf corporations, those companies that sell them are on the business credit reporting agency's radar, and they will put alerts on your credit report for many things, including that those kind of companies are inquiring into your business credit reports. We have customers that have alerts on their credit report when they never even bought trade lines, just because a company for some reason that sells trade lines put an inquiry on their business credit report. Then we go through a process to help clients get that removed. So these alerts, you can stay away from the bad alerts by not doing crazy stuff. Don't buy shelf corps, don't buy trade lines. That kind of stuff can trigger adverse alerts that you really don't want to be on your business credit report. So when it comes to scores, the next section has two scores: the small business credit risk score for suppliers and the business failure score. Now, just what it sounds like, the first score is for suppliers. Each of the reporting agencies has their own supplier score, and the score is supposed to be used to be able to gauge whether suppliers, how credit worthy suppliers are, right? The goal here is that you don't spend $10,000 with the supplier and then they go bankrupt the next day and you're out that money. Suppliers have a special need because we need to make sure that when we give them money, we're going to get the product that they're providing for us in exchange for that money. If they're in if they have a financial hardship and they're about to fail, then we need to know that, because we don't want to give the suppliers that money. That's why each bureau has a supplier score. And then here's that score we talked about, business failure risk score, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's used to depict your risk of failing, of going bankrupt. And again, what you need to know about the score, which I'm sure we'll cover, is you could be issued a failing score here even when you have no credit. It's why you have to build business credit. It's not even a choice, because what will happen is after they know you exist, the first year in business. They get that from the annual reports from your Secretary of State. Then this score becomes very low because you have no credit. You have to get credit to be able to get it to a respectable level. So here's how the credit risk score actually works. Now, the actual credit risk score itself from Equifax, known as the credit risk score, okay, and they also have a credit risk score from suppliers. This is how they break down. 90 days, 90 plus means you pay your bills as agreed. Okay, 20 to 39 means you're 91 to 120 days late. Equifax, just like Dun and Bradstreet, their scores literally depict how you pay your bills. So as you can see here, you can easily get a good score by paying your bill as agreed. So if Equifax gives you a failing score because you have no credit, it only takes one account to get on your report that you pay as agreed to bring that score up, to start to bring that score up, because their scores are based on payment history. So remember, there is a credit risk score for suppliers as well, but this is your main credit risk score. This is how this breaks down to actually show you how your payment history ties into what your score is, and your score determines the rates and terms you'll get on additional financing. Now, the business failure score, 497 to 816, 25% of or less of payments being overdue. Okay, you're 452 to 496. Well, I'm just going to pull these up so I don't have to go through. So again, this is determining your risk of payments falling behind. Okay, and it goes as high as 816. Okay, which means you have 25% or less chance of defaulting. And if your score is low, on the low end of 101, which is the score you'll see, 101 to 816, then you have a very good chance of having delinquent payments. So again, with this, the higher the score, the better. You want a higher score. Remember, as we just looked at, same thing here, the higher the score so far with both of these that we have looked at, the better. So public records include bankruptcies, judgments, liens. They also will include lawsuits, which we're not used to in the business world. That's not happens in the consumer world. If you were getting sued, that wouldn't show on your consumer credit report. But business credit reports, it does. It shows judgments. It shows bankruptcies. It shows liens. It also shows, again, any information related to that. So you need to know that information, even relating to lawsuits, whether you're suing somebody or getting sued, that shows on your business credit reports as well. They also show the amounts, if any amounts are due here, like a judgment, and the date of the most recent filings of those public events. So this section also shows how these matters were satisfied. If a lien was paid off, for example, if a judgment was paid off, the credit report will reflect if these are there and active, and if they've actually been satisfied as well. Now, the next part is a pie chart showing your company's credit usage. It graphically shows which percent of your available credit line you're using. It also has identifying labels to show how much each percentage truly is. Okay, so again, this is just going to basically give you an idea of what percentage of available credit you're using. It gives you an idea of your utilization. Okay, and that becomes not a factor of your Equifax credit score. It doesn't calculate it all into your business credit score with Equifax, but it is on your credit report. Same with inquiries. Inquiries will show on your business credit report, but it doesn't calculate into the credit score with any of the reporting agencies. The only place that utilization affects your business credit scores is with Experian, where about 10 to 15% of your commercial credit score with Experian can account for utilization. With Equifax and Dun & Bradstreet, 0% of your credit score has to do with utilization. Now, in the summary section of your report, you're going to see the number of your business credit accounts, the total number of what we call payment experiences you have, accounts reporting to them, the date these credit accounts became active, the date you opened them, any amounts past due, and what will be called DBA or days, or DBT, days beyond terms. That'll show too how many days you're paying beyond the terms, but beyond the time you're supposed to. Your most severe status within the last 24 months. This is how slowly you paid your debt, so this is going to show as well. The single highest amount of credit extended will show, and the median balance on all of your accounts will show, and the average open balance on your accounts as well. So you'll learn about business credit reports. Limits will not show on your credit report. Yes, credit issuers and lenders will have access to that data on the reports they get. On the credit report you get, it's not going to actually show it's not actually going to show the limits. It's going to show these balances. It's going to show the recent amount of credit you've used. So it becomes very important. A lot of people mess up building business credit because they just try to get as many accounts as they can and they spend very little. Then their credit report shows that they've spent less than $100 on every one of those accounts, and they're not able to get very high limits on their future approvals. Remember, you want to use this credit because using the credit is what will raise the score, making sure you have the payment history. The more accounts you have that you're using, the higher the future limits will be as well, because credit issuers are seeing that you're actually using that credit. Now, all these factors are divided into financial and non-financial categories. Your company's recent activity is also listed, which includes the number of new accounts open, delinquent accounts, the number of inquiries, the number of updated accounts will show on your business credit report with Equifax as well. Now, the credit report summary includes a line graph that represents a trend line showing your company's average day beyond terms. Again, DBT, something you'll see on a lot of credit reports for businesses that's abbreviated in big caps, capital D, capital B, capital T, days beyond terms. You'll see this all over your credit report showing how many times the credit was paid beyond the due date. Remember, business credit is very different than consumer credit. With consumer credit, you can go 30 days late before any late payment shows on your commercial or on your consumer credit report. In the business world, you can go, if you go 1 day late, it adversely affects your scores. Remember, your scores literally depict how you pay. So you could pay early and get a better score. You could pay on time and get a good score. You could pay late, even a day, and you can start to have damage to your score. So again, you need to make sure that you're paying all your bills as early as you can. Okay, the report will point out the recent trend of how you're paying your bills. It adds how many days your company's behind terms. Section also shows your business's payment index as well. Okay, and it compares it to your company's industry. So this is something very interesting, which again exists in the business world, doesn't really exist in the consumer. Well, yeah, it does. I think nowadays you're starting to get credit scores from credit card companies that show where your score matches up compared to others. Even the credit bureaus are including that in some of your credit monitoring. So very popular in the business world as well. Okay, there are all bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and Dun & Bradstreet, all have and also Credit Safe, also have comparison scores to compare your score, your business risk against others in your industry. Why is this necessary? Because some industries, like restaurants, are very high risk. So lenders and credit issuers who give credit want to see how high risk your business is overall. But then they also want to see how high risk you are compared to others in your industry. So let's say lenders that specifically lend to restaurants, they're not concerned with your overall risk as much because they know it's risky. They specialize in risking in that space. They want to see how well you're performing to other restaurants. So they're going to want to see this industry comparison, which is very popular on business credit reports. So the financial account highlights, this section has details for the most recent 36 months. Starts with highlights and then gets into detail. It adds basic information on financial accounts such as commercial credit cards and leases, showing the status of those, open and close dates, original and current credit limits, the balance that you have, past due amount, and your company's 24-month history. Look, a lot of your credit scores, well, all of your credit scores, a lot of your credit report has to do with this, basically how you're paying your bills. It becomes very important. But other dates of when you're opening the accounts, when you're closing the accounts, balances, all these things will show up as well, because all these things are a reflection of how you're managing the credit for the business. Now, it's a little bit different than consumer credit. With consumer credit, you want to show really low balances. Your balances below 2% of your credit limit can really be positive to your score, because 30% of your consumer credit score is made up of utilization. Remember, Equifax, none of your score has to do with utilization. It's almost the opposite here. credit issuers want to see that you're actually using the credit. So having balances actually can help you more in a lot of cases than hurt you. Whereas with consumer credit, it just hurts you. You have balances, it just hurts you because they see you have less money available. In the business world, we see that you're using the credit. And so that's a good sign of a business that's growing, that's using their pay, that's paying their bills as agreed, that has balances. Those are good things. So unlike with consumer credit, utilization could really, really be a bad thing. In the business world, it's not going to really crush you. It's good that you're using your credit. It's even okay that you're carrying balances, which is something you'd want to avoid in the consumer world. So this section also has detailed subsection expanding on the highlights portion. It adds information such as the payment amount and frequency. Also include whether or not a debt is secured. Secured versus unsecured matters a great deal in the event of a bankruptcy, right? And it also is two different areas that different lenders are looking for. Credit issuers care about unsecured payments because those are credit cards. They want to see how you perform on other credit card payments, whereas lenders want to see how you do with secured debt that's secured by something, because again, in most loans, you're supplying some kind of collateral. So again, they want to see differences between credit issuers and lenders are focused more on unsecured versus secured. Now, secured creditors get a preferred place in line for limited assets. So again, secured, they care about how those perform, and unsecured, like credit card companies, they care more about those kind of how you perform on those kind of payments. So next we see balances, past due amounts, aging categories, date of first delinquency, if any, for the most recent month. So we're looking at when you went late, if you went late at all. Aging categories, something very different on business credit reports. With Equifax and Experian and Dun & Bradstreet, you will not see credit issuer name on your credit report. Very, very different. In the business world, you will only see a category of business credit report, not an actual credit issuer name. So you need to keep track of the credit issuers that you're putting on your business credit report, because again, it could be very common for you to see a category of office supplies, and then you might not know whether that's Staples or whether that's Office Depot, for example. So it becomes very important that you keep track of what kind of business and which of these sources that you are actually obtaining, so you know who these companies are just because they're reporting the categories. And believe it or not, it's actually pretty tough to call the credit bureaus and get them to tell you. They're not going to typically tell you who the credit issuer is, so you really need to make sure that you keep track of that on your own. Non-financial payment credit experience and status. So the following section shows trade accounts and the like. It also includes balances, aging categories, and a 24-month history as well. So these are non-financial payment credit experiences that don't have to do with banks and credit card issuers and all the other things that are non-financial that you may have payments on, such as software, for example. Okay, and public records. So public records, this shows more detailed information on judgments, liens, bankruptcies. And again, as I mentioned, this will also show lawsuit data as well. So you need to make sure that you expect to see, if you're part of any lawsuit, that you actually very well may see that appear on your business credit reports. So decisioning details. The next part will show the details of what went into your business failure risk summary report. These details will be specific to each business. Okay, and the final piece of the report shows any DBA information, any doing business as information, and any related files. It also has any other more or less miscellaneous information which may be on a report, includes comments which don't fit anywhere else. You have the choice to add comments to your business credit report. So you can always add comments in relation to things that are on there that you may not be able to get removed, for example. Now, before we get into improving a business credit report, here, let me show you what one actually looks like. This is public information, so anybody can see it. But again, I will show you kind of an actual physical look at a credit report. This is Christine. Christine's been on our webinars many times, going over and sharing her results, sharing her reports. This is a report that's really, really old. This is 2 years ago from her credit report. But we can see again, here's that company profile information. We can see the Equifax ID. Experian has one called the BIN number. Dun and Bradstreet has one called the DUNS number. That's how they identify you in the system. The company profile information here. Remember, I can show you any of this information, even though Christine has given me permission. Wouldn't need it. It's public information. I can pull your business credit report. Anybody can look at your business credit report. This is publicly accessible data, unlike consumer credit. Remember, here's that credit risk score we talked about. Now, this one isn't for suppliers. This is the actual credit risk score. We talked about the supplier score and how it works, but you'll see that credit risk score here. We see the payment index here. The payment index takes into account your financial data. I told you again that you could see a score on here that takes into account the number of employees you have. If they don't have your tax returns, don't know your revenue, you could see that right here. Here's the business failure score. This one's very Experian. These failure scores literally depict your risk of going bankrupt. And again, you'll see that if you have no credit, you're very, very, very high risk. And you can see here that the factors affecting the score: length of time since oldest financial account open. So even here, they're saying this person's middle risk because they haven't had credit open enough. Or long enough. So you got to get this credit open quick enough so you're going to have this, or so you're going to have a good score. And then we see that credit utilization, right? That's that graph we talked about right here to show the utilization that you have, what you're using. And that DBT we talked about, the days beyond terms. So again, this was from years ago. Okay, this was from 2 years ago. The credit reports have changed a little, and I may actually have another look. Let me look at one I have. Nope, all the ones I have are about the same, same age that I have available to me right now. Then we can see here's that summary data we just talked about: number of accounts, credit active since when you opened it, number of charge-offs, total past due, most severe status in the last 24 months, single highest credit extended, the highest limit you've ever been extended, the total exposure, the amount of credit you have outstanding, the median balance, the average open balance, and then here's the reset activity: number of delinquent, new accounts open, inquiries, accounts updated again, and here are the inquiries right here. Now notice we can't see credit issuer name here. We only see category. Financial could mean that you're applying for a credit card or a loan, for example, and then any messages down here, comments. Legal entity has more than one site. Additional information was limited to inquiry. So headquarters. So again, you can see here, this is start with the kind of messages that happen when you start to have multiple addresses, which is really problematic because your credit profile is linked to your business name and that basically the address. So when you start to have multiple locations, it throws up all kinds of problems, as you can start to see the bureaus are indicating here with the messages. Okay, here we go. That's a public record section we just talked about. Judgments, bankruptcies, liens, lawsuits may actually show in this section as well. And then again, your incorporation date, all those type of details here. Alternative company names and addresses, you can see that all right here. And then as we come down here, this will just kind of give you all kinds of information that we already just talked about, and even more facts here as well. So this will give you a good idea of what is on the Equifax Business Credit Report. As you can see here, this is what it looks like versus just the actual theory that we talked about. So how do you improve this? Well, now that you know what goes into the report, you can see that some of the more important pieces of data Equifax are looking for includes public records. So eliminating, or making sure you don't have any of these, such as liens, judgments, can be in your favor. Credit usage, again, it doesn't really calculate into your score, but no credit issuer or lender is going to want to see you're maxed out on all your credit, so you want to manage that responsibly. And how you handle your financial and non-financial accounts. Remember, they look at both. So the lenders and credit issuers really care about the financial data, how you pay other credit issuers and lenders, whereas others that aren't in the financial space care more about the non-financial accounts. So improve your Equifax by clearing your debts as quickly as possible and not going delinquent. Not going delinquent is what matters. Don't worry necessarily about paying all of your balances down every month. Doesn't really calculate into your score, but it will show on your credit report, so you do want to manage that responsibly. Keeping your credit utilization within reason. Again, it doesn't adversely affect your score with Equifax, but it does show front and center on your credit report. So if you're maxed out, it's going to be pretty tough for you to expect that a bunch of other credit card issuers are going to want to issue you high limit cards. Okay, and it should be less than 30% of total available credit's best. But again, that really is almost a myth and a rumor. Doesn't necessarily have to be there. But again, when you start getting up to a point where you're overutilized, that becomes a problem, and you want to obviously avoid paying late payments. In 2007, Equifax had a data breach. In light of the breach, you may want to freeze your personal or business credit reports. Knowing how to read an Equifax credit report will help. You'll also be able to spot issues, trends, etc. before it happens. So Equifax gets its data from a lot of sources. We talked about two main sources, but the reality is they get their data from a lot of different places, including online searches. We talked about utility companies. We talked about small business financial exchange. We talked about trade vendors, etc. that report to them. It includes public records, scoring details, and its reports. We already talked about multiple credit scores that are going to be on your reports. We talked about what those are, how those work, and also public records. It focuses on recent trends. Remember, your days beyond terms, how you're paying your bills. They're really most concerned with your recent activity of how you're paying your debts. And these trends include payment history and balances as well. So again, most important is to make sure that you're focusing on building a solid payment history. That's what matters most. But you also need to know that they're going to get data from Secretary of State like revenue, employees, and all those kind of things can even be calculated into your financial stability type scores. If you have any other questions, give us a ring, 877-600-2487, info@creditsuite.com. Don't forget to get credit monitoring at creditsuite.com/monitoring. And we have all kinds of free training on our website at creditsuite.com as well. On the top right of the page, you can listen to us on iTunes on the go. We go live weekly on YouTube. We also go live in most weeks on Facebook. And what's nice about Facebook is you can engage with us. You can ask questions in real time. I'm answering questions. It's the only format we have where in real time we are answering questions with you. And we also have Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, where we post daily tips. So hopefully you enjoyed this training. More training to come in the future as we break down Experian, as we break down Dun & Bradstreet, get into CreditSafe, get into your FICO SBSS score. But I'm a big believer that knowledge is power. If you understand what goes on these reports, how these scores work, it gives you a better ability to then control the data that the bureaus have and control what's being used to calculate your scores. Because, of course, business credit determines if you'll get approved for financing, how much you'll get approved for, and the rates and terms you pay. Our goal is to make sure you get the most money at the best terms. So this becomes very important information to help you do just that. Any other questions, feel free to give us a ring, 877-600-2487, info@creditsuite.com, or visit us online at creditsuite.com. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.